I'm Eamon.
I'm Merlin.
And we're Gay
and His Enby.
Episode 19. Thank you for joining us for another episode of A Gay and His Enby. And this is the episode where we are talking all things Bravo. And we're so excited that you're joining us wherever you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts. Tell your friends, let them know to check out A Gay and His Enby. And subscribe to us on all social medias, leave a rating and review, do all the things to help us get in as many ears as possible. We're really excited to be bringing you these episodes, and we want your feedback and everything that you have to say. But we're going to get into everything Bravo. What do we have on tap, babe?
So, we've got more drama happening over in West Hollywood. We'll actually know in Mexico right now with Vanderpump Rules.
We're going to be, I'll say this in the forefront, we're going to be very opinionated this episode on Vanderpump Rules.
Yeah.
We had
very much so.
We had a mini podcast at home after the episode.
Unfortunately, you all missed out on because we did not record it. But yeah.
We'll try to recreate it. And then also, not to forget, Ultimate Girls Trip.
Ultimate Girls Trip out there in Thailand with our lovely, lovely Pepsi hosting it all. But first, before we get into anything else, we're going to be heading to New Jersey.
Real Housewives in New Jersey. This was a little bit of a calmer episode, definitely than last week.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, so we'll go straight into it. So we start kind of at Paul and Dolores's place, and Paul is recovering still from his heart surgery.
Stunning place, and apparently he lives in New York.
I'm assuming he lives right on the
research that I did, because if you so I was sleuthing on this because you can literally see the Brooklyn Bridge out off of his balcony.
There's a part later in the episode where I was just like, God damn, that's a gorgeous view.
Yeah, it's stunning. But from all the reports that I've seen, he actually lives in New York proper. So he's not in New Jersey, he's in New York. So if Dolores is moving in with him, why is she still on this show? I don't know. But anyway.
Yeah, at the end, the commute we've seen with Potomac, even in the case of Potomac is a loose.
Oh yeah.
Some of these girls are making 2-hour commutes to get to events.
Well, I mean, I feel like that's the same with pretty much any of these shows, right? Like Dallas, some of these girls were not in Dallas city limits. Some of them were in Colleyville. Some of them were in Plano.
Yeah.
They were all over the place in Dallas. So I imagine that's the same for any of these, I
mean, Jersey's a big...
It's an entire state.
There you go.
It's the only one of these shows that is dedicated to an entire state. New York was always New York City,
right?
It wasn't New York, all of New York.
But so they're talking about the sort of what happened at the party in terms of the Frank stuff, and sort of the discussion about it. And Paul brings up that apparently he has a really good relationship with his ex and his ex-wife and their 2 kids that they have together. So that he kind of also is dealing with sort of similar things in that regard of they have, at the very least, have a friendship, it seems.
But that feels weird to me as to why he wouldn't understand why Frank would still want to have a good relationship with Dolores.
I think it also depends. Again, we've
rehashed this a million times, but
I think there's a difference between a relationship and being viewed as a unit. You know what I mean? And I think, and Paul kind of brings up this thing of I think Frank is kind of maybe feels like he made a mistake by not fighting harder to keep Dolores.
And, Dolores is well, yeah, he knew that before we got divorced.
Yeah.
He knew he fucked up.
Yeah. Well, I think knowing you fucked up and also fighting for it more. And I've said it before. I think a lot of the girls on the show and even some elements of the fan base have put the narrative out there of Dolores and Frank need to get back together. And
and I mean, I was on that bandwagon at first, but the longer I watched them, the more I realized that they work better as friends. They don't really work as a couple.
Right.
But I don't think that it's fair for anyone to say you're not allowed to be friends with that person.
Sure.
And again, that has not been explicitly said on the show, but to me, the only reason that the Dolores and Frank relationship is changing has been the addition of Paulie, which, again, to me, makes it seem like he is the person driving that. And that could be me misreading the situation. I'm not there. I'm not in the middle of that, right? Yeah. But that's what I'm seeing from the outside. And I hope that's not true, because I don't think that Dolores deserves someone telling her who she can and can't have a relationship with. If she is making this change for him, but it's her decision to make it and he's not pushing it, fine. She gets to do that.
Yeah, I understand that. I think so, and also Dolores is also talking about why she's going to get together with Jennifer for lunch to sort of discuss like their friendship and like where how possibly trying to, you know, get this back sort of in a better place than where they were, which we talked last episode. I'm hopeful for. We go over to Rachel's house, and they're sort of just doing stuff around the house as a family. They got a backpack for her like 2-year-old daughter. What is this with the newbie girl, like, and how quick their daughters are like I don't have children. We don't have children. Like I feel like 2 years old is way too young for like school. I get like preschool, but like preschool isn't like,
I didn't even have preschool when like I went to kindergarten
yeah, same.
At 4 years old.
Yeah. Well, 4 years old. I went like,
well, we had K4 and K5, and then first grade was 6.
For me, I had like church preschool, which was like...
Well, I mean, I went to school at my church for the first until 5th grade,
right.
And that's when I transferred to public school. But like our church, you know, had a school, and they had K4 through 12 at the time.
Right. And like it's literally like the backpack she gives her like literally dwarfs her whole body to where I'm like, if like it's just something about that plus Danielle's daughter like learning about like, you know, pointillism and like all these like, oh, it's like what is happening in Jersey to where like what are the programs that these kids are in? But they're talking they're talking about Jaden, who is Rachel's stepson. And sort of that he's leaving for college, and like and you know, Rachel kind of feeling a little bit sort of upset about that in terms of obviously the sort of detachment of that. But then Jaden also talks about like apparently he doesn't want them to have another kid right now, like, which you know, and Rachel had talked about in the past like wanting to go quickly into another one. And then, but Rachel also talks about wanting to adopt Jaden, and they talk about sort of the process, and like John is a little worried that like if this happens, the mother can, you know, I think like either reach out or petition against it, or
there's a whole issue, and I know that they're going to get into it later on in the season, but yeah, there's a whole thing where if they challenge it, because in order for Rachel to adopt him, the mother has to give up all parental rights.
Right. But they talk very vaguely about the mother and why the mother isn't involved in Jaden's life, essentially. And that Rachel talks about basically having to be the like middle ground between Jaden and her to like give updates on like how he's doing, etc. And it's like,
yeah, but it's another step and another like there's a finality to giving up parental rights because there's no going back from that. Yeah. You know,
I had heard, but they don't. Like I said, they don't really say specifically what it is that's like her issue. I had heard some stuff that like she was in like a halfway house or something. But like that, I don't know if I've seen that just in like news stories and stuff like that, but I haven't seen like full reports.
I assume that it'll get talked about on the show because I mean, if it becomes an issue,
I have a feeling that because they're being vague about it, it's a pretty sensitive thing to where like probably it's, you know, can be an issue to bring
suffice it to say, it's a situation where I think they were hinting towards that was probably the crux of why she's no longer with John, and you know why she's not involved in Jaden's life. So I mean, it's big enough that it caused all of that. So I don't know. I understand why she would want to not give up parental rights, especially as a mother. It's different when you're like, it shouldn't be different when you're a father, but like the way that society has things set up now, it's different as a mom.
Yeah.
Like, you carried that child. That child was in your body. So I mean, I get why you would want to hold on to that as long as possible.
Oh yeah, of course. We go to the lunch that Jennifer and Dolores are having to sort of like discuss their issues. And they kind of get into it. Like Jennifer like talks about that, like basically feeling like she didn't stick up for her in front of Margaret enough, which I do think Dolores did a lot in terms of like there are clips that you see from last season of her like telling the group essentially about, but like she does. I can see Jennifer's point of her sort of playing middle ground with her and Margaret necessarily, and when it is Margaret specifically bringing out that the affair stuff, I can understand how you probably need to go a little harder on that person when you're that person's friend.
Yeah.
Like, and she talks about like, you know, I know your past issues with Frank, obviously, you know, and all the stuff you went through with him about like, so for that reason, it kind of hurt a little bit more. And I get that, and you know, Dolores also thinks that Jennifer, but I agree with Dolores of like, if you're feeling this way, you should have brought that to me directly, because the first I was hearing about that was at the reunion,
Right.
and like it was like it did feel kind of like what the fuck, like, you know.
Yeah, it was a blindside.
Yeah, and so that and when Dolores is blindsided like that, she goes scorched earth. Like,
Yeah.
like Dolores has a very short fuse in that regard.
Dolores is either your best friend or you're in like the enemy to you and everyone you've ever come in contact with.
Yeah.
Like it's one or the other.
Mm-hmm. And then, but they eventually make a truce. They're like, we're, you know, I care about you enough to where we can put this past us. And they sort of start talking a little bit more about other stuff. And Dolores brings up what Jackie had told her about what Jennifer was saying about Bill and sort of their issues. And Dolores says that it really resonates with her because like she remembers hitting a breaking point of being sick of catering to Frank when he, you know, and she's talked about this in the last couple episodes of just like I think, and we talked about like, I feel like both of them are also in this sort of like new age of discovering themselves as women, and we're both in sort of more traditional relationships in terms of culture to where they weren't, they had to take it in many regards, and they're learning how to speak up more, and they're learning how to like be more opinionated and be more independent. And I think that's what kind of bonds them in certain ways in terms of that struggle.
Yeah, definitely.
And Dolores says, I've also like, Dolores is like, you know, this is something that you guys can fight for, because she feels like there's a lot more love in Jen and Bill's house than was with her and Frank. Like,
yeah,
that there's something to salvage essentially. And so Jennifer also, we'll get to it later, but Jennifer then brings up, so I thought it would be a good idea to like, you know, Teresa introduced me to this woman who does these Turkish coffee readings. For
Lord.
For those that have seen like in the past, it's like a sort of a, I guess a psychic, I guess is the.
It's similar to like a tea reading, or it's a form of divination.
Yeah, where they can they can see stuff in the remnants of like your coffee cup or whatever, and like get stuff from it. Which I actually don't. I think they did this once on Roni, I think, which I thought was really good. But like, I think like we'll get to it. It's a lot this episode.
Look, Bravo has a history of not getting the maybe the most reputable fortune tellers. We'll put that word on it.
They either get really good ones, or like it's just like you found somebody to
they picked the first person on the list when somebody Googled this area plus fortune teller.
Yeah. So we go to Melissa and Joe's new house that they're constructing. And Melissa has Antonio with her to sort of check it out. And she like, they're like, what I feel like she's like, she was saying like, I'm sick of castles. Like, I'm sick of that sort of vibe. I want something more modern, and like she wants the sort of traditional housewife house. Like
I'm sure that this has no shade to Teresa's new house.
No, not at all. Which a lot of people have been dragging the house now that it's finished online of like sort of stylistically, which, you know,
I haven't seen it actually.
It's okay. It's not the best. But also I think like it's weird seeing that shift, especially when you watch earlier seasons of Jersey, because it is like the vibes of the house are very different. Like from now till then, like we talk about the sort of gaudiness of Teresa and Joe Judas's old house, but like
it was awful.
It's
for anyone who's not watched seasons where that house was a main character. It was a main character.
Oh yeah, it was a lot. And Melissa talks about how she's doing a pop-up essentially for Danielle at Envy for Danielle's clothing stuff that she's doing. And then we cut in between that to Danielle at her house getting ready for, like, getting everything planned for it. And she FaceTimes Teresa. We find out Teresa's tested positive for COVID. So she won't be at the coffee reading event. Is doing the full, like, blowing your nose into the like over exaggerated sickness, which she did look terrible on the FaceTime. I would just say, like,
yeah,
but like I'm also somebody who, like, I get seasonal allergies to where I like the 2 days that I get sick, I feel like I look like I'm dying. So I you know, not everyone can be stunning and gorgeous.
For all the women listening to this, he's a man when he's got a cold.
Oh,
you know what that is.
I feel like I'm worse than others. I think I'm
worse, definitely worse.
Yeah. So, but they're going in between Melissa and Joe talking and Teresa and Danielle talking, and they talk about apparently that Louis was crying at the end of all the breakdown at Rachel's party and
the
stuff like that.
The longest party ever.
Yeah, and he's in. This was for like this. You know, whatever, you know, Louis is, and there's obviously there was a lot of question marks put on him last episode too that we talked about. But I also just think this like masculinity element that keeps coming up on Jersey is so frustrating because it's so clear. Like, oh, really? He's crying? It's like,
jeez,
like this is the place we're living in. And then there's also I guess there's all these reports coming out that Louis got into a fight with Dina's husband. And because of that, Dina's not coming to the wedding and is out of the wedding party, which that has been disputed by Dina, I believe, from what I've been reading, that it had nothing to do with that. Basically, according to Dina, she's not in the wedding party because she knew it was going to be filmed.
Right. And she doesn't want anything to do with being on television anymore, which I understand. It was a traumatic experience for her, so I get it.
Yeah. The one time she came back, even still, she was like, this is not for me. Like,
yeah.
And so it doesn't seem like that really holds water in terms of this. I mean, they're trying to basically draw a comparison to this, and well, this happened with Dina because they're alleging it's over a business thing or whatever. This happened with Dina's husband, and now it's happening with Joe Gorga, essentially. And I don't see that. I also had a question of like this was being reported in all the blogs that this was what happened, and I was like, where would they get that from? That conspiracy brain, but
I don't know. I wish that we didn't have so much twisting of events, and I wish that we just had everything laid out in front of us so that we could make our astute assessments of the events, but that's not what we're ever going to get. So
yeah. And Danielle talks to Teresa about how she was upset at at Rachel's party and stormed off and all that stuff. And she talks about how it felt like, you know, of her time when she was in high school and she was being bullied, which I also love that she was like, you know, this was such a like, you know, I was really bullied in high school. I was the pretty cheerleader, and so everyone would like bully, and it's like, what? Like,
I don't know about you, but in every high school I've literally ever heard of, cheerleaders run that place.
Yeah, it's like,
so
she's like, and all the women were jealous of me and thought that I was like a slut or whatever, and like trying to take their men and stuff like that. I was like, I'm not denying that. Like that might be true, but like it doesn't resonate when you're just like, I was bullied because I was so pretty, and like it. So we go.
So she was the leader of the plastics. Got it.
Essentially. So we go over to Dolores. We go over to Paul's house because that's where they're hosting the coffee reading lunch, right? At I thought Dolores looked beautiful, by the way, in this like
Absolutely.
it shouldn't work, but this like 3 different colored like floral like it ended up working in a weird way. And Angie, who's the cup breeder, arrives as well. As everyone's starting to file in, and everyone's admiring how great the house is, that Paulie's house is. Jen Fessler says that it's somewhere in between, basically says it's somewhere in between the Taj Mahal and 50 Shades of Grey.
Which I didn't get that.
Not Taj
okay.
Mahal at the least. I could see it does have like kind of a more like.
I mean, it's pretty modern. It's not at all Taj Mahal like.
No, but like almost like 50 Shades of Grey maybe makes it does look something that would be more in like New York uptown, like, you know, sort of vibe. And Margaret and Jennifer are basically kind of avoiding each other in sort of the early goings of this. Like they're like, which I mean, I guess is for the best. Like if they're not gonna, you know, actually have a conversation and get to a better place. Melissa talks also though about like how good Dolores has it because of like, you know, Paulie's home. Frank built her a home. Her David built her a home. Like so, like she's, you know, she's doing pretty well. You know, they all sort of sit down outside, and they're like, "Which side?" I forgot who it was. Someone comes in, is like, "Which side is more shady?" And Jennifer goes, "More shade on this side, no pun intended." That was a fun line. And Dolores and Jennifer talk about how Dolores brings up that, you know, that her and Jennifer made up, and that's why this is a joint sort of party that we're putting together. And that Jennifer was basically like, I don't think if I did this at my house, people would come over, essentially. So we're doing it at Paul's house. Yeah. And Margaret's basically like, I don't think Dolores even likes Jennifer. Like that Dolores essentially says that Dolores just wants to like be Switzerland, essentially.
I mean, that has been Dolores's MO in the past.
Yeah.
I will say, did you see the picture of Jen that she took at this party? Or Jennifer rather, not Jen Fessler. Jennifer took at this party on the balcony, and everybody was like, "Are you holding on to the side of the building?" Like, because there's like this glass railing, and you can't see it behind her, but she's like leaning up against what looks like the side. It literally looks like she's hanging off the side of this balcony. Anyway, she looks great in the picture. I love this like green and white floral thing that she's got going on. Very, very cute. Anyway, that picture went viral on Instagram, and I just wanted to bring that up.
I was going to say, I mean, Jen Fessler does always look great. I was going to say, is this before or after the Ozempic? Which
No, not Jen Fessler.
Jennifer Aiden.
Jennifer Aiden, yeah.
Oh, okay. But, well, speaking of, I can't believe we're talking about this. Also, Dolores on this Watch What Happens Live with this episode just being like, yeah, I'm on Ozempic. What is happening? Like
it is frustrating because it's really hard to support these people when they are just like, diabetes is a disability, guys. It's not like we should not be taking diabetic medication for weight loss. Literally on the commercial. Literally on the screen, on the commercial, because we saw the Ozempic commercial while we were watching Housewives.
But it's almost as if, like, when Jen Fessler said it and when now Dolores is saying it, it's almost like they're talking about it as if it's like, yeah, I'm just on the new trend. As if they don't know any of the controversy. Like,
yeah.
It's like, what is, like...
But it's a brand name. That's why they're not saying it.
Sure. It's like, you're smart women. Like, I don't understand this. But the topic also, I think it was Jennifer brings up the topic about like Danielle being upset at the party and like the storming off and stuff like that. And that like, and I agree with Jennifer here. Jennifer basically is like, look, when this topic sort of would come up in my direction with something new, like someone also new to the group, like my first instinct wouldn't be that you did this and you did something that deserved that. And, you know, I don't believe you necessarily. And Jackie's like, no one's saying we don't believe her. You are though. I don't like. What do you mean you're saying you? What do you mean you don't? You don't. You're not saying you don't believe her.
I feel like that's disingenuous from Jackie, but from a lot of the women who were participating in that conversation, I don't think that statement is wrong.
I think when Jen Fessler says like I had questions, that's yes.
We have questions.
100%.
There was literally part of the story that she told Melissa that she has not told anyone else. And like, I'm sorry, it's a giant hole in the story with the neon sign pointing at it. It would be dumb of them to not question it.
Right. But it's all in how you handle it. And I agree with like Jennifer just being like, I don't know why everyone is jumping immediately to she's hiding something. Or like Jackie and Margaret at the very least.
Yeah.
Are jumping to she's hiding something.
Yes, I will say that it feels more like Margaret is still, there's something missing, as opposed to she's hiding something and she's doing something wrong and it's all her fault and she's evil, as opposed to that definitely feels like the vibe that we're getting from Jackie.
Sure. Yeah, well, and also I just feel like there's a lot of talk in these episodes about Margaret being upset that someone's saying something about her when she's not there.
Right.
And it's like but you can't understand why Danielle's upset. I don't get that. And then this moment. So they go back into the house. And they're just talking or whatever. And Dolores then has to break the news that, so Teresa talked to us and basically she had this meditation where she had this sort of like revelation moment in her head and about us being in the wedding. And almost before she can get out, Jennifer just goes, "So we're bridesmaids." Like
giant shit-eating grin on her face.
It was so fucked
staring
up.
Straight at Melissa.
Now I get it in the sense that like here's the thing: Teresa did offer it to Melissa at the mozzarella party, and Melissa did reject
it was disingenuous, and you know it.
You think it was disingenuous?
Look, at the time, I felt like it might have been genuine. But after everything we've seen, and now putting all of this back together in the aftermath, no, I don't think so.
I still want to believe in that regard. I think everyone is having issues, and like I'm trying to like not have everything color like.
I don't think anybody is right in that conflict. I think everybody is wrong. Everybody just needs to say, "Hey, I fucked up," and move forward. But I also don't necessarily think that any of them want to fix it at this point.
Sure.
I feel like all of them are stuck in their ways. They are all too interested in being right instead of fixing it. And that goes for Teresa. It goes for Louie. It goes for Melissa and Joe. All four of them.
Yeah.
All four of them are stuck in their version of what happened, and it doesn't fucking matter.
Well, and like on the Watch What Happens Live with Dolores, like her and Andy were talking because I guess they're filming the reunion next week, and like they're both in the agreement of like I think they're done, like I think it's just done, and like that's and I think like that's okay, it's done. They're not gonna have a relationship. Like I don't know what that means for the show, but like
but back to this moment where Jennifer is, staring in Melissa's face with a giant shit-eating grin on her face. I was so frustrated with this. This should have been a pull Melissa aside and inform her beforehand.
Sure.
And I said this to you in the moment. To me, Dolores, I get why Jennifer didn't, because fuck her. But Dolores should have pulled Melissa aside and said, "Look, I don't want you to be blindsided in front of everybody else."
Right.
Teresa has asked Jennifer and I to be bridesmaids in the wedding, and we have both accepted. So I don't know. I didn't know if that would upset you or not, but in case it did, I wanted you to be able to handle that privately instead of in front of the cameras and in front of all the other girls.
I think you could even do it in front of cameras, just pull her aside.
But still, it should have been a pull aside moment.
Yeah.
It should not have been a I'm not allowed to feel what I'm going to feel because anything is going to be construed as putting on a show for these women.
Sure. And Melissa says that, says that she thinks it's ironic because Dolores wasn't even invited to the engagement party. And then Jen Fessler brings up that, well, we all know that Dina has dropped out of the wedding. So this seems like the replacement essentially. And about like seemingly also part of why Dolores wasn't at the engagement party was because Dina was there. And so the producer in Dolores' confessional brings this up. It's like, do you think that Dina being at the engagement party played a role in you not being invited to it? And Dolores just goes, I'm not talking about Dina ever.
Which I respect her on that. I honestly, knowing Dolores, I think it is very much she doesn't want to be on this show. She doesn't want to be in front of the cameras. Leave her out of it.
And from what she was talking on Watch What Happens Live, like she made the point to be like, I've never had like a direct confrontation with Dina, but it's based off of the fact that I'm friends with Caroline Manzo and Caroline and Dina's issues. And I like, it's almost in the sense of like Dolores is like, I respect that. That's fine. Like, and she doesn't want to be a part of the show. So I'm not going to.
And I
feel like she's saying she's doing it both for Dina's sake and Caroline's sake.
Right. But I mean, I also understand like she doesn't want to be on this show. So I'm not going to be part of constantly bringing her up. I'm also not going to talk about somebody that I don't know.
Yeah.
Like they don't have a relationship. They've never had a relationship. So like, why are we asking her about Dina? She doesn't know. Don't talk to me about her.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think if there's such a, I don't think if that was the motive of why she wasn't invited to the engagement party, one, it seemed like Dolores was fine with that. Like it wasn't that she took it. I mean, people can make the argument that Dolores just takes certain things from Teresa that she does. But like, I do think Dolores, I don't think Dolores would have wanted to be there if Dina's there.
Yeah.
Like, I think, and she knows her and Dina are friends and that's fine. Like, I don't know.
Well, and the way that Dolores has talked about it, it's like, we just respect that let's talk about Teresa.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, we just both respect that we have friends that are not friends with each other, and that's okay. And we just ignore it.
Yeah, I mean, like, Teresa and Caroline's issues are pretty evident. And it doesn't seem
Teresa doesn't ask me about Caroline. I don't ask her about Dina, and that's just it. We're done.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to come up.
Yeah. So they're all grabbing food and stuff like that. Danielle and Margaret are sitting next to each other and just awkwardly eating alone at the table at one point, and it's just like, yeah, it's pretty awkward.
It gave very much the sitting alone in the VIP.
Yeah. Well, and also, but she's like, Danielle points it out, and it's like, well, this is kind of awkward. And Margaret goes, "Yeah, you ran away last time." I'm like, oh my god, Margaret, really? Danielle doesn't take the bait. But so they all sit at the table, and Dolores basically announces that she wants to do a girls' trip / bachelorette party for Teresa in Ireland, since she loved when Paul took her, and the vibe of that. Again, we talked about. I'm excited for them to do an actual girls' trip out of the city, or not out of the city, out of the country.
We hadn't gotten one of those in a while.
Yeah,
the closest is this trip on Vanderpump, which we will get to Mexico.
Yes. But we get into the actual cup readings that Angie's doing. So she goes through everyone's. For Dolores, she sees a ring on her finger, and like everyone's like immediately like, yeah, like finally Paulie's gonna put a ring on it. And
then they did a flashback with her to the last time that they had a fortune teller, future seer, whatever. And talked about how she would have another love in her life. And this was before she was with Paulie. So, maybe there's some truth to that. Maybe she will end up with a ring on her finger. Who knows? Yeah.
And Rachel, in Rachel's cup, she sees the letter V and basically says that it signals that she'll have some form of victory in either 3 months or 3 years. And Rachel's hoping that it has something to do with the adoption process and something in regards to that. And Margaret gets to talk a little bit about sort of how she's bonded with Rachel, and she commends her for having her relationship with her stepson and sees a lot of herself in her with how she raised her stepchildren,
Mhm.
and Margaret's obviously talked about that relationship on the show a lot. And they cut to a photo when Margaret's talking about, and I was like, is this a photo of Margaret or is this the stepkids? Like it was like, but it
Yeah,
was like
the kids, I think.
yeah, because it seemed like the photo was too like
Recent.
recent to like be Margaret, but it was also the woman in it looked. I don't know.
It didn't look like Margaret.
Well, and it seemed interesting if those are the stepkids that they showed the photo of it because Margaret's talked about having a strained relationship with them in recent seasons.
Maybe it has been repaired, to some degree recently.
Yeah, hopefully. And this is going well. And then we get to Margaret's cup. So Angie is looking in the cup and she sees a childhood friend or someone from like their her childhood, and she sees the letter L, and everyone's like, because obviously the stuff with her ex-friend Laura, who has been sending stuff to Jennifer and Teresa. And at first I was like, oh shit, that's really cool. Like, oh, I can't believe she got that. And she's like, Angie's also like, I see a knife in your back. Which also made me which gave me pause of like, okay, well, maybe it is real of what is, because why would, spoiler alert, the topic comes up of whether Jennifer like planted this woman to like
in front of the cup. We'll get to it, but in front of the cup reader, I thought that was rude.
That was a little rude. But like she brings up the like, to me, like if this was all Jennifer planting stuff, the knife in your back, like
right,
she's saying the knife is in Margaret's back.
Right. It characterizes it to where Margaret is the good guy, which doesn't seem like something that Jennifer would plant.
Yeah, that unless Jennifer's really good at like throwing a curveball in there.
I mean, maybe.
Yeah. Also, like, well, and also as it's happening, Jen Fessler literally chokes on her drink and it's like gives a full like almost spit take.
Yeah, it's great.
But like, part of me also is like, could this reasonably have been Jennifer planting this woman? Yes. Could it also have been the producers of this show being like, here's all the info on these women?
Yes.
I wouldn't put it past them.
I'm telling you, if you want some real people who can really do this shit for real, come to Pittsburgh. We got a group of them here.
Yeah.
We got a lot of witchy folk in this city, and at least the circle I run around with, we know our stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want real people who can really tell the future, come talk to me.
And Jen Fessler in her confessional is like, I'm gullible, but I'm not that gullible.
Yeah.
Like in terms of this. And then Angie says that, but in the end of it, they rekindle their relationship. And Margaret goes, no, never. And then Jen Fessler going, that's not what the coffee cup says, Margaret. Jen Fessler's great. I love her. So then this is what, but I was still like, oh, maybe she is seeing something. Because even oh, you get back together with her at the end. Maybe you're seeing something. Like, maybe you're actually seeing something. And then they get to Jennifer and her reading. And they talk, like her children come up. And then she says something about, you have these endorsements. You're going to get, in the years to come, more endorsements. And then Jackie and Margaret look at each other like,
this is literally the fight they just had at Jen Fessler's party.
And they get a flashback to Margaret saying like something. Again, I feel like they were also misusing the word endorsements. I don't know what the hell they meant by that.
They mean that she's going to like get like
you don't have a support system.
Like no, they mean that she's going to get brand deals.
Was that what she meant?
They mean like a job.
I thought she meant like you're not happy, like clearly you're not happy with Bill, etc., and all that stuff, and like so like you don't have anyone supporting you. You don't have endorsements in terms of people. That's what I got from it, and I feel like that's what Angie was saying, to where like Margaret was like, really, and because it's like it's such a specific word.
No, I feel like it's similar to like on Married to Madison with Anila doing like the blog things and like getting brand support. Yes, that's more how it came off to me, was Jen is looking for brands to pay her to advertise, like, but she's like, her excuse is, well, I have a young daughter and I want to like wait until she's older and more independent before I go back into doing that. And that's her excuse of why she's not getting
Sure.
but that's the only way the word endorsements makes sense to me.
I just didn't know how it applied to that fight that they had, but also when I think back to it, that fight was really confusing on many regards. That was the fight where Jennifer was just quoting Pretty Woman at one point, so it was like, I mean, it honestly would have made sense. And I love Margaret Erica Fessler going, you know who's endorsing you? Charmin, because you have 16 bathrooms and you're full of shit.
It was great. But see, that's what I mean. Endorsements. That's an endorsement, like a brand deal.
Yeah, Jackie's just like, did Jennifer tell you? Like, she brings it up at the table, and Jennifer's like, really? And like they're fighting, and Jackie's like, how would she pull the word endorsements like that? And Jennifer goes, because she read it in the fucking cup, Jackie.
Like, let me see that cup, because I don't think that you could get the word endorsements. That's a pretty long word. Those are little bitty cups. Those are like sake cups. You can't really.
I almost like if Jennifer did it, I almost commend her. Cause like at least that's fucking funny. Like it's so fucking funny.
I at least would want her to admit it in confessionals. Like, come on.
Yeah. But yeah. So then they read Danielle's cup, and like the topic of Danielle's brother comes up again in the cup, and Danielle gets real emotional about it, obviously. And like Danielle's venting about like how she feels like sort of attacked by these women, and like that it's not coming from a place of like heartfeltness, and it's just like, attacks. And even Melissa's like, let's leave her alone, guys. Like it's not like, she doesn't deserve to be like hounded like this. Like it's a major thing. And I think part of it, I think Melissa said it's also like her personal experience of like the Teresa stuff, and obviously it's like,
well, and she's about to be experiencing somebody questioning, her version of events here in the next few episodes.
Yeah. So, and then Danielle and Rachel then start fighting because the topic of what Rachel told Margaret comes up again, and how she colored it. And Rachel's just like, I told her exactly what happened. It wasn't like, I'm going to be honest, I don't try to hide shit or whatever. And literally as Danielle and Rachel are fighting, Angie just gets up and leaves. She's like, I'm done. I do feel, if she is a genuine like reader, like I feel bad for her, because like this show like made like she's never gonna get hired again for anything.
Well, and that's why I'm just like, why would you go on and take that information? Like, if you know what you're doing and you're going on a show like this,
you gotta keep your reputation alive.
Keep your reputation. Like, call people out for shit that's like showing like. I have done readings for people that I literally am meeting in a coffee shop and have read their life story and have them break down crying.
Yeah.
Like, so you can't tell me that this stuff isn't real. Like, but get somebody on there that knows what they're doing, and get somebody on there who is actually going to be motivated by giving people the information that they need to move forward and heal in their lives. Like, that is supposed to be the point.
Yeah, I agree. And the fighting settles down at one point, and Dolores is like, guys, this is done. Like, we got to go home. I have a headache. And the episode just ends with Margaret going, I can't take another second. I'm sweating from my twat. It's and that's how we end the episode. Just perfect way to end the episode. But it was a good episode of Jersey, a little lighter, mainly because it didn't focus as much on the main drama of the show. But like you said, we're going to Ireland, and based on the preview, this is where shit hits the fan, it seems.
Yep.
So we'll see how that goes. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, oh boy, we're getting into everything Vanderpump Rules. Don't go anywhere.
Well, hello, friends. I'm Derpel in the mainstream media.
And I'm the Riz.
And, Riz, it takes years of strenuous, dedicated training before you're worthy to step inside a professional wrestling ring. But it takes even more time to develop complex, highly astute opinions about professional wrestling. Am I right?
That is correct. And you know where we can combine that?
Yes.
On the Wrestling Man.
That's right.
I'm Eamon.
I'm Merlin.
And if you're anything like us, you live your life out loud.
And when it comes to issues of discrimination, inequity, and outright bigotry, We use every platform we have to speak out against systems of oppression that perpetrate violence against marginalized groups.
That's why we are so proud to wear designs from the Survivors Know merch store. Their team has created designs that feature unapologetic, empowering, and survivor-centered messaging that range from mild,
like accountability is love and toxicity is not on the menu,
to a little more spicy.
like one of my favorites, fuck your laws, fuck your system, transformative justice now, which has a cute little happy flower on it.
Each design is available on a variety of items from t-shirts and hoodies to bags, blankets, magnets, and even stickers. And as more items become available, the options will continue to grow.
100% of the proceeds go back into supporting the amazing work done at Survivors Know to support survivors, workers, and survivor advocates by organizing, challenging the status quo, and creating alternatives to the systems that fail us.
Support Survivors Know by shopping today at survivorsknow.threadless.com.
That's survivorsknow.threadless.com.
Sidekick Media Services. We are your sidekick in business for social media, video production, and more. Find out more at sidekickmediaservices.com.
Welcome back to A Gay and His Enby. We are going to be headed down to Mexico to catch up with the former staff of Sir on Vanderpump Rules.
Yes, Vanderpump Rules. We're coming from the to be continued of the confrontation that ended the episode with Ariana and James at the dinner table, and Allie storms off. And Allie is James is like, Allie's not used to confrontation, and Allie even herself says later, like, that's what she detaches herself at a certain point, and it's not, something she sticks around for. And then we talked about Sandoval not saying anything. Finally, Sandoval pipes up, but he says, James, sometimes real power is having the power to do something and not doing it.
How about the power to not fuck your girlfriend of 9 years? How about let's not fuck her best friend? How about that power?
Literally the fucking audacity. Like, you're gonna lecture anyone on control and like having like and James in his confession will be like, who the fuck is Tom Sandoval right now? Is he Uncle Ben from Spider-Man? With great power comes great response. Fuck off. I loved God. James when James is directly pointed, as crass as he is, like I'm here for it. But we go over to as this dinner is happening, Schwartz and Katie's like celebration of their end of their relationship dinner. And Schwartz going
so awkward.
Schwartz going to the hostess at the thing and being like, yes, 2 for Bubba. And the woman just being like, I don't understand what you mean. And it's like, yeah, I call her Bubba. I'm going with Bub right now because it's more platonic. We'll get into it.
The hostess might as well have said, "You're 40 fucking years old. Use a goddamn name."
No, but literally, I need a name. Like this isn't like. We'll get into it. We have me and Merlin both have strong opinions on Schwartz. I'll just say that. So they get to the table and they're like, yeah, let's get some cocktails and a bottle of wine. And the waiter goes, so why are you guys? So you guys are celebrating something big? And they're just like, he's like anniversary, marriage, or
kind of the opposite, actually.
Yeah, literally, we're getting divorced, and he's like, oh great. Well, I'm gonna leave you to. Oh, it was so good. Also, we're going to talk about the whole thing, but literally there were like 3 or 4 times as this dinner is happening where he just interrupts conversations mid thing to just like put down their food, and it's the funniest shit ever. Like this waiter is just like it's his worst shift ever. I gotta imagine.
Oh yeah.
So, and Schwartz is like, oh, this is really romantic, and starts speaking French, even though they're in Mexico.
I mean, speaking French because it's a French restaurant.
Well, also, I say speaking French. He's literally just singing Alouette.
Yeah.
And
Katie's like, did you make that up? Have you never heard Alouette? What?
Yeah. And Katie's like, Schwartz is never really good at being romantic. And we see like flashbacks of like the ring on the string and like all it's, yeah. And then this fucking toast that he does, like they're like, so let's toast, and he's like, to getting back on the heat. What did he say? Hedonic treadmill.
The hedonic treadmill.
And Kate's like, what? What the fuck does that mean? And I didn't even understand it, but you had to explain it to me what he's saying.
It's basically, we're both single, let's go fuck around.
Like
hedonism is getting drunk, partying, and fucking everything inside.
And this is where Schwartz just annoys me. Where like Katie is then like actually trying to like give a proper like sort of like, let's toast to selling our house, even though this is a really, might be a sad chapter. It's also something of oh, sorry. There's my phone is like really tight in my pocket. The suit is like he can't focus for 2 fucking seconds to have a genuine moment with this person. It's the most frustrating bullshit. I'm like, and then he literally they finally like sort of start eating and goes, I don't want to ruin the moment, but I felt kind of guilty telling Brock and Sheena I wasn't coming to the dinner. If you don't want to, here's a suggestion, Schwartz. And I'm sure nobody has brought this to you ever. If you don't want to ruin a moment by bringing something up, you can not bring it up.
What a novel idea.
It's like, and he knows this. This is where this dialogue of like, well, Katie's a bitch and Katie's mean and Katie holds grudges. Okay, but if you know that, let's say all that's true. If you know that, don't bring up her mortal enemy and how you feel bad not going to their dinner.
Yeah.
It's not that difficult.
It's really not.
So we cut back to the remnants of the dinner, and James is apologizing to Lala and Ariana's kind of like, sort of like still in her feelings and not taking it. And there's this awkward silence, and Lala just goes, "Are my nipples even?" and Ariana's like, "Yeah, that one's a little lower."
James is like trying to look everywhere but her chest.
Yeah, but Ariana eventually accepts the apology and they hug.
Which, good for him for not staring and participating in that. No, your nipples are uneven conversation.
Sure.
Like, I mean, I feel like he has slightly grown. Maybe in the last 6 years he's been on the show, 7, maybe 8.
Yeah, he didn't call Lala a dumb whore for having crooked nipples. Like that's.
I mean, growth.
Yeah.
Growth.
Schwartz and Katie. We'll go back to Schwartz and Katie. And then this is where it starts off. Schwartz just goes, "You know what? Now that I think about it, now that we're divorced, I feel like I'm more apt to defend you." And Katie's like, "What?"
And the entire world said, "What?"
Yeah, it's like she's like, "You don't defend me at all. Like you literally like, I can't this whole I can't pull a wife-husband card ever in terms of our." And he goes, you pull the wife-husband card all the time, though. You can't use the wife-husband card like 16 times a day. And Katie goes, "But you never ever did it. Like, it's not me. Like, who cares if I pull it 16 times a day when you've never done it once?"
Yeah.
And also this idea of this is where it's like pulling the wife or husband card. It's like, so you expect me to just support you no matter what? Kinda, yeah, in public. Like I get, like if there are certain things that you genuinely feel someone's doing poorly, we've talked about that there's a way to do it in private, but also like,
even like you can support somebody without agreeing with them.
Yes, absolutely.
Like you can literally step in and go, "Hey, lay off," and not like agree with what she's saying.
Yeah.
You don't have to agree with what she's saying if you don't agree with what she's saying, but you can at least step in and go, "This conversation's over."
Yeah. It's so fucking.
It's so simple to like just show that you love somebody. It's so easy, and you failed every time.
But Schwartz thinks he did. He literally says, "I think I was a great fucking husband."
Bitch, where is you being a great husband in the room with us right now? Because I feel like you're imagining it.
And I don't want to get too ahead of things. So our kind of our disagreement that we kind of had is like you kind of point out, and I think you're right in terms of like sort of Schwartz's tics and some of the things that he does unintentionally to like help with like.
I feel like you're latching onto that, and that has nothing to do with my actual argument.
No, the way I'm, sir, but the way I'm bringing the reason I'm bringing this up is that like I can agree with that. I agree that there's like certain things that people do to like diffuse situations or like, you know, that are uncontrollable almost in a sense. But my problem with Schwartz is moments like where he says things like, I was a great fucking husband.
I don't disagree with you on this.
No, I'm not saying you do. But like there's a delusion there that I find so infuriating when literally she's broken up with you. She literally has told you like out of her mouth that you weren't a great husband to her. And it's like, I like at this point, the fact that you are like, maybe you're trying to make yourself believe it at the end of the day, but like this, it's devoid of fact. And that's where it's like, it almost comes, and Katie uses the term later in the dinner, but like it comes off gaslighty.
Oh, 100%. Like, so the reason that Eamon brings up the tics is because when Katie a little bit later gets up and leaves the table and leaves the restaurant, he does this.
He has a smile on his face.
Well, it's not like a big old grin, but it's like that like smirky type thing is how you characterized it.
Yeah.
And to me, that's similar to someone who laughs at a funeral or in a serious situation. It's something that you can't necessarily help. And I don't think lumping that in with the assessment of him being an asshole is fair.
No, I get that.
It's not a display of him being an asshole. That's just him being uncomfortable. He's an asshole completely independent of that.
Right. I think there's also a larger, like, I agree with you. I think there's a larger, like, vibe from and it's not, when I say this, it's not just Schwartz. It's actually pretty much all the men on the show of this perception of, like, bitches be crazy. And, like, you know, there's a dismissiveness of how he talks to Katie.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what you're bringing to me is just you being a bitch and you being this, like, you know, jealous fucking, like, selfish person who isn't allowed to have a range of actual emotions or feelings. And we were talking about, like, you see, if you look at comments under posts about Vanderpump Rules about Schwartz and Katie, it's always like, Schwartz has a point. Katie is a mean girl. Katie is a bit of a bitch. She is, you know, up her own ass. And it's like, okay, but I feel like if Schwartz gave her a moment to sort of be emotional and express her emotions, probably it wouldn't compound in a way to where she comes off very negative. That's my theory. Like,
turns out when you constantly are being unsupported by your friends and gaslit by your husband and pretty much have nobody on your side ever, you might be a little bit of a bitch.
Yeah. But Katie, and not just Katie, but I would say women on this show don't get that range. Schwartz is allowed to be an asshole. And there are still even moments in this episode of, like, you know, Schwartz has lost his mojo and he needs to get his confidence back. But that's never, except from, like, maybe Lala and Christina Kelly, that's never given to Katie. That grace and that desire for that person to, you know, they're in a slump, but they can be better. That's never given to Katie. And that's what frustrates me.
Yeah.
And you know, but even in the dinner, Schwartz at one point goes, you know, this is why I didn't stick up for you towards the end of our marriage. And I was like, towards the end?
Or towards the beginning or the middle or beforehand or even any time afterwards. So, like...
And it was so sad watching Katie in her confessional. And the producer is like, did you ever, like, think about, like, why he had this issue of never sort of having your back in this regard? And Katie just goes, the only conclusion I could get to is that he never liked me. He may have loved me, but he never liked me.
Yeah.
And it's so fucking sad.
Yeah.
But it's true, honestly. And like, that's fucking terrible.
Yeah.
Like, that's really fucking terrible. And and that's why I also don't like, I've seen comments too of like, well, Katie forced him to get married. Okay, but he could have been an adult and actually communicated with this person of like, sorry, you're not the love of my life. I can't.
Or even if he was an adult and said, hey, I'm not ready to be married. And if you're ready to be married, I'm not there yet.
And that was Katie's whole point, by the way, was like, I need to move on if you're not ready. Like, that was like, Katie handled it in an adult manner and is to this day getting comments blaming her for forcing Schwartz to marry her. And it's like, because Schwartz couldn't be a fucking adult as the 40-year-old man he is now and actually make a decision taking into account other people other than himself.
Yeah.
That's my frustration. You know, and Katie calls him out for sort of gaslighting about being in Brock's wedding party. And like, Katie's trying to get the words out and Schwartz is just talking over her. And Schwartz then just goes, I think it's better when we don't talk that much. And then like they're starting to eat dinner and he's like, the steak's really, and looks over and Katie's crying. Like literally like it's clearly a cry of like, I can't even communicate. Like I can't even express myself at this moment without getting jumped down. And it's like that it's a frustrated cry. And Schwartz starts doing that, oh Bubba, don't cry, no Bubba. But then like as she's in crying, trying to even express herself in that moment of like, you know, I just want, all this group is fucking hates me now and fucking, doesn't take into account that I have feelings in this. And he's like, well, it's not everyone. It's just, and she's like, it's Raquel and Sheena. And like, they've just been so mean. And before she can even get the words out, he's like, well, Katie, you were a provocateur in that case. And she's just like, I'm fucking done. And walks out. Like, also, in what scenario was Katie a provocateur in the Sheena stuff? In what fucking scenario?
Because she stood up for herself.
Sheena was the one who tried to rehash the shit about the divorce in the podcast and bringing up the Raquel stuff, was pushing Raquel to make out with Schwartz. Like, Katie responds, and suddenly she's the one who started this? That's fucking bullshit.
And this comes to the crux of my assessment of Schwartz. Schwartz doesn't want anybody to make waves. He is fine with people being awful as long as it's not making waves. Like, he is fine with Schwartz or with Sandoval mowing him down constantly. He is fine with Sheena treating people like shit. But the second that somebody stands up to one of those people and pushes back, that's when Schwartz has a problem.
Well, and I also I think there's also truth to that. A lot of this is Sandoval's fault, and I think a lot like Sandoval has been putting in Schwartz's head how much Katie is a bitch, and for the entire run of the show, I feel.
But I will say, if you go back and look at the way that Schwartz was raised, and this is not making an excuse because he's 40 fucking years old and he has the autonomy to make a fucking decision to be a different person than how he was raised.
Yeah.
But if you go back and look at the way that his family handles things, I guarantee you it is you do not address issues, you sweep it under the rug. If somebody makes a wave, they are cut out.
Sure.
And because that is the way he has acted since day one on this show. And it has always been towards Katie.
Yeah. I think it's just also... and we talked about this a little bit. It's also one thing to see this playing out on the show as well, but also when even part of me also thinks like when you're on a reality TV program, you have this thing called hindsight when you watch a season back, or you can see yourself in ways that you maybe didn't see yourself when you were in the moment in that situation. Mm-hmm. And that's my frustration now with Schwartz, is that he's seen these episodes and doesn't think he's done anything wrong. Yeah. When we won't get into that Watch What Happens Live episode with Schwartz too much, which was beyond. We'll talk later about about the bombshell that he dropped in terms of the Scandival element of it. But during the after show, he's still like, Katie played the wife card too much, and at a certain point I became numb to it. Like that's his idea. His idea of owning it is like, I became really numb to it. But you saying that still puts the onus of it on Katie. And he calls Katie in it a monster.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's fucking cruel at this point. As he's saying that, even Andy has a reaction at the end of like, you need to stop. Like even Andy has an exasperation on his face of like,
If she was a monster, why did you marry her?
That's my thing. Like,
because he was already in a relationship with her. He didn't want to get married to her because it would change something. That is causing a ripple.
And this
right?
is a man. This is a man who has cheated on her multiple fucking times.
Yeah.
Even Jax has gone as far as saying Katie's never cheated.
Yeah.
Like he has cheated on her multiple times. He's poured beer on her head during a fight. You know, the multiple times he doesn't stand up for her in arguments, and not only doesn't stand up for her in arguments. Look at the fight last season. Remember, we talked about it with the whole police officer prank and the stuff he's saying to her about like, you're so fucking ugly when you complain, and it's like so degrading.
Yeah.
And but she's the monster. And there's enough people that it's so even more infuriating than him saying that is seeing the comments underneath of people being like, he has a point. Katie is a bitch. It's like there's a misogyny that we've talked about on this show that I think it permeates in many ways. And I just get so fucking frustrated with it. But let's move on to the rest of this episode because I get so heated about it. So Allie comes back to the table, right? After this, leaving to sort of cool down. And she comes back with Brock and sits back down and she just goes, "Hi, are we safe?" I like Allie. Allie's not, Allie's smart.
And I said this to you before when we were watching it. I'm always going to give a side eye to anyone that James brings in because of the Raquel of it all. But I feel like, and this is why I feel so trepidatious, because I felt like Raquel was breaking free of that stigma of you were coming in, clinging on to somebody else. So, well, I mean, that's not her thing anymore. She's made her own spot on the show, I guess.
Yeah, but Allie, people did some snooping and found that Allie was like on an old reality show in like 2004, I think, called The Valley. So I don't think you're wrong.
She's old enough to have been on a show in 2004.
I think it was like, I never watched The Valley, but I think it was like people in their teens. So
okay.
I think, but like, I don't think you're wrong in having suspicions, is what I'm saying. Of like, it's not far off that someone would try to date someone on this show to get on the show. Like,
I mean, James did it.
James, exactly. So, but they're talking about, so Sheena's like, we're taking the catamaran out tomorrow for like my bachelorette. And Lala's talking to Christina Kelly, who's next to her, being like, I'm not sure if I'm still deciding if I want to go, essentially. I don't want to, cause issue with Raquel being there. And James just goes, "Oh, Sheena, Lala's not going on the catamaran." And Sheena's like, "What the fuck?" Like,
what a dick.
Like, and gets pissed at Lala about it. And also Sandoval and the others are going to get drinks later at this club called Desires, which that's a metaphor. And then Lala's like, "What the fuck, James? Really?" And goes to talk to Sheena and Brock and is like, "Look, I didn't want to throw off the energy. My whole point was I want to do something that doesn't fuck up your energy of your bachelorette. That was all I said. I wasn't trying." And Brock is like, Katie's at this vacation, and this vacation's not about Katie, so don't side with Katie, essentially.
Who brought up Katie?
No one.
Nobody brought up Katie.
And Sheena's like, but Sheena then brings up, like, why is Christina Kelly here at this dinner? And like, that is like, that we talked about it, that was shady on Lala. And Lala's like, I didn't think it was a wedding dinner. Like,
that shouldn't matter. You know that Sheena's there. You shouldn't be bringing Christina or Katie around. Like, I understand not wanting to exclude Katie from things and still wanting to spend time with her while you're there. Totally get it. I actually agree with that.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't be bringing her to anything that Sheena's at.
Right. Speaking of Christina Kelly, we go to Katie's room after she stormed out of the dinner, and she's just texting Christina, "I fucking hate him." Which, like, such a mood. Like, honestly, I'm with you, girl. And like, she's like, "Can you come back up to the room?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'll be right up." And Schwartz calls Katie still at the dinner as he's like eating his steak or whatever. It's just like, "Katie, come back." But he says it in a very condescending tone. He's like, "Katie, come back." Even the tone is like, you're being over dramatic. It's like, no, shut the fuck up, dude. And Katie immediately hangs up on him.
Good for her.
Yeah. And Katie vents to Christina about it and what happened. And Christina is just like, this is a reminder why you're not with him. Like take that as a
1,000%.
And I fully agree.
And
with
I think that's why she started crying at the table, because she realized, I don't think a friendship is even salvageable from this.
Yeah.
Because he's going to continue to shit on me. He's going to like, the whole point of the divorce was to get away from this treatment, and he's still going to treat me like this.
Yeah.
So I can't even maintain a friendship here.
So, oh my God. So then we get a knock on the door, and they're like, what the fuck? And then they look out, like, it's Raquel. And they're like, why the fuck is Raquel here? And they
whole scene.
And they open the door, and it's like, there's also like no music in the background, so it feels like really ominous. And Raquel's like, can I come in? And they're like, why? It's like, just to come in first. I just need to say something.
She's like, you can say it here. They like try to keep her at the door. They're like, I don't want you in the room.
But they're like, okay, you can come inside. And they're like, Raquel's like, okay, like, you know, I'll let you guys sit down, etc. So, I just came up because Sheena wanted me to tell you guys that she took you off of the preferred list, so you can't be by the pool with the swim up bar. Katie and Christina just start laughing. It's like, what the fuck? Like, it was, someone would say best, it was giving Alex McCord telling Jill Zarin that Bethany doesn't want to be her friend anymore.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, honestly, I felt validated because I was like, yes, that's what my research said. So yes, I feel like my snooping and research played out there.
Yeah. And Katie was great in her confessional. She's like, it's just rich that Raquel is telling me not to do something. The self-awareness is so lacking.
Yeah.
Which, yeah. And Christina brings up, like, you know, is it an issue with me, etc. Like, I kind of want to have a conversation with Sheena because I came to the dinner, and obviously, but I feel like there's still issues. And Raquel's just like, you know, still trying to like be like, yeah, so it's just this pool or whatever during the wedding. And Katie's just basically like, I mean, I feel like if I want to go to the pool, I'll go to the pool. Like, we'll just go. And Raquel's just like, so you'll just go wherever you want. And Katie's like, yeah.
And Christina tries to like clean it up like while Raquel's leaving. She's like, no, we'll stay away from the pool. And then Katie goes, or we won't.
Maybe I'll be drunk and I'll forget. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so great.
And then like and Raquel leaves and Katie just goes, what a dumbass, dude. I feel bad for her. It was such a mood. So then we go to Desires as they're drinking more. And Ariana and Raquel immediately hug, which I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. This is just going to get more awkward the more we go. And then Raquel tells Sheena what she did in Katie's room. And then Sheena's just basically like, because we showed a flashback of like when they were checking in, Sheena being like, so who's the bridesmaid that's going to tell Katie that she's not allowed by the pools, etc. And Sheena now in her confessional is like, I was just joking. Like, I wasn't being serious at all. But the fact that Raquel did that was honestly savage. It's like, oh my God.
Fuck off.
Yeah. So we go, it's the next morning, and James is like, oh God, I got to rally for Brock's bachelor like thing at this like day club, which like, oh my God, more drinking and shit. With like,
this was the gayest bachelor party I've ever seen in my life.
Oh my God. So they're all in fucking
Speedos with Brock's face on them in drag.
And yeah, but like, and they're like, what? They're slapping each other on the ass and they're like grabbing each other's like, it was like, oh, it was too much. And James in his confessions being like, I'm just can't with let's take some Viagra and fuck some kangaroos.
I didn't remember that part of the bachelor party, but okay.
Yeah. So, and as this, like, so Katie and Christina are at the pool. I think this is the pool that they were banned from.
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, we came in and they were like, we gave them our room numbers and they're like, yeah, you're allowed in. So even Sheena fucked that up. I don't know. And then the ladies are on the catamaran for Sheena's bachelorette. And over at the bachelor party, like Schwartz and Sandoval are like eyeing up some of the women or whatever that are there. And like Sandoval's like, yeah, me and Ariana check out girls all the time.
Oh, yeah, because Schwartz had gone, it still feels illegal to check out other girls. And Sandoval's like, oh, yeah, well, we check them out together all the time, guys and girls.
I'm sure you do. Yeah, I'm sure it's a real mutual agreement that you guys have.
Yeah, the only difference is Ariana leaves it there. You go fuck them.
Yeah. He just missed that part in the memo. Like, it's all a misunderstanding.
He didn't understand that eye fucking was just eye fucking.
Yeah. And Schwartz thinks that one of them looks like Raquel or whatever, and he talks about how beautiful Raquel is.
And Sandoval immediately goes, no, that's not her.
You pointed this out. You're like, you just saw the back of her, and you
like, you should not know what the back of your friend looks like in a bikini.
Yeah. Yeah. On the catamaran, Lala pulls Allie to the side, and Raquel's talking about, she kind of didn't want Allie to be invited, but I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to give off Lala energy. Like, whatever.
It's so tiring.
Yeah, I'm so over Raquel. And Lala talks to Allie of sort of like, basically just kind of giving her a pep talk in the sense about like the James stuff, and like basically telling her that she needs to, always maintain her power. And like, she was like, last night was a lot, but Lala's also like, last night is relatively tame to what you could experience in the future, which is true. Like, yeah. And it's like, and Lala even like is crying to her, just being like, I want to look out for you because I see you're a really good person, and like, and she kind of makes the comparison in her confessional of James to Randall.
Yeah.
About like, you can have all the red flags in front of you, but there's this person that's like so good at creating an illusion that like,
yep.
Which like, yeah, he's not wrong. And like Sandoval's trying to like get Schwartz with some of these girls at this party. Whatever, I don't really care. Moving on. We go to Villa Rosa as Lisa and Ken are getting ready to have Pandy and Jason over. Which when she said that, I was like, oh God, with the news that came out about Jason, and his business.
Jeez.
Oh God. We won't get into it. It's all alleged. Ken says that they talk about Greg and about them not still being open yet. And I love Lisa being like, what did you think of Greg? And he's like, he was okay.
Fine.
Like, Ken does not give a fuck. And Lisa says that, that the fact that Greg didn't really understand who he's in bed with in terms of the Toms, and like he maybe bit off more than he can chew in this, and that they're not going to. Lisa's just worried that they're not going to be able to open in 10 days, and wants to help them, but does like it's like, I don't want to step on Greg's toes. It's a weird like,
yeah,
it's a weird predicament because Lisa always wants to mother. I mean, if I was Lisa, I would just be like, you guys figure it out. I don't like. It's not my restaurant. Like, fuck it at the end of the day. Like, if it doesn't fuck with Tom, I don't really care at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So they're getting ready also for the welcome white party. So they're welcome. Lala talks about it later. There are way too many. How many fucking parties are they doing on this vacation? Like, you have an engagement party, a welcome party, a bachelor party, a bachelorette party. It's like, oh, it's way too much.
Sheena.
It's Sheena. Everything gotta be perfect. And then Allie basically in their hotel room tells James what Lala said, and James is really upset about it. Like, oh, she compared me to Randall or whatever. She technically, I don't think did it in front of Allie, but she definitely did in the confessional.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty obvious what was happening, but maybe not.
Yeah, and it's like, Lala, maybe look at yourself. What did he say about like, oh, she didn't pay attention because she wanted a pickleball in the back.
Yeah, it was. I just am frustrated that James doesn't do anything on this trip, or really in life at all, unless it is shitting on Lala, shitting on Raquel, or shitting on Brock.
Basically,
that's all he does.
Literally,
one of those is valid.
Maybe a little bit of Raquel too.
No, I meant shitting on Raquel was valid. I don't think shitting on Lala and shitting on Brock really is valid because he literally, even in the confessional, goes, oh, yeah, well, he was shitting on the party, but then he was like, oh, yeah, all of these guys I would definitely go party with. And it's like, then why are you complaining about the partying?
I think he's still really pissed off about the wedding stuff from last year, about he
doesn't know how to do anything but be pissed off.
He has this weird, like, particularly with Brock, he has this weird, like, feud with that I don't really fully understand. And, like,
because he doesn't know how to be satisfied or happy with anything.
Sure.
He only exists in the space of complaining.
Yeah. No. There's a moment later where it's like, oh my God, James. But people start filing into the welcome party that they're having, but Lala isn't going and is meeting up with Katie and Christina for dinner. Even though everyone's supposed to dress in white and Lala's in white, but is like with Katie and Christina, who are both in black. And they're seated like right across from the part, like the restaurant is sort of like opened, like open wall, and like literally right across from them is the party.
Well, I mean, it is a big resort, but it's not that big.
Yeah. And Katie just is like, cool. But Katie in her confessional was like, I just picked this restaurant because I thought the menu looked good. It had nothing to do with like trying to like eye up Sheena's party or whatever. And, I didn't plan it this way. And then, like, waits a couple seconds and then smiles in her confessional, which I loved. And then, like, Sheena's there at the end, like, Sheena's talking with people and Katie and them are in the background. And she's like, oh, my God, Sheena, like, Katie and them are there? Really? Oh, my God.
Sheena's so obsessed.
Like,
just enjoy your festivities.
Yeah. And Raquel's like, I know, it's crazy. And then Raquel, this was the most cringiest bullshit ever. Raquel in her confessional being like, they're like her and Christina Kelly are like the two old people from the Muppets. And she's in her confessional with her like
god awful pink fuzzy thing. That was odd.
Like, oh, look at that, Katie. Oh, they're having so much fun. It was like, don't do comedy. Raquel, stop. Like, it was so cringy and awful. We find out that Christina actually, like, before the dinner, talked to Sheena about their issues, and Christina kind of basically apologized about the comments she made about the wedding dress during her first wedding and all that stuff. And I feel like Christina was like, I don't want issue. Like, it's not that big of a issue to me. Katie's like, I don't even think you need to apologize to her, but like, whatever. Like, but, I like Christina Kelly. I think Christina Kelly is largely no bullshit. I think she has a good read on people, as we saw with Raquel.
And she also realizes that she needs more than one in to be back on this show.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. So this is the other James moment I was talking about. Like, so they're all partying or whatever, and they're like banging on these like water drums or whatever that have the neon colors, and they're just partying or whatever. And James is with Allie's like, should we do the spinny thing? And Allie's like, what's the spinny thing? He's like, you don't remember our spinny thing?
And then he continues to shit on her for not knowing what the fuck he's talking about.
And he's like, it's fine. You don't know the spinny. I mean, they're all looking at me now that you didn't do it. So whatever, it's fine. It was like, what the fuck is happening? Like, no, like, James needs to go to therapy real quick. Like, it's a lot.
Needs to go to hell real quick.
Yeah. So Sheena and Brock and Sandoval and Ariana are talking, and Ariana is asking where Lala is and wonders, why Lala said that she wanted to only go to the non-intimate stuff, and but like this, she's not here for this, and that Sheena then brings Schwartz over and asks if he's going to make out with anyone to get his groove, because Schwartz has to get his groove back or whatever the fuck, as if like. But
over it.
Sheena asked him if he's going to make out with someone, and Raquel immediately comes into the conversation. Even Ariana's she's like, she had her ears perked up of just like.
It literally looked like somebody was like clicked her and dragged her across the screen to be next to. It was like, what the hell?
Yeah, it's too much. And I love Ariana telling Schwartz, you only really like to make out with people when you're married to someone else. And everyone's like, true, but And she says that Raquel goes, maybe that's what it is.
Shut the fuck up.
She's the worst. She's so bad. She's such a villain.
Because at this point, her and Sandoval are already fucking.
Yeah. And well,
are
they already fucking at this point?
Yes, because they started fucking on boys' night.
Do you think they're So Schwartz on Watch What Happens Live dropped the bomb that he knew of a, quote, one-night stand with Sandoval and Raquel in August. He says it was after the wedding, or either after this episode, at the very least. So...
Yeah, I don't think that what he knew about had happened yet. But they clearly lied to him about it being a one-night thing.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with that. But
I think he caught them together at the wedding after this episode because on this episode is the 21st. The wedding is on the 23rd. So there's still another day before the wedding. My theory is he catches them probably in that 3 hours that they disappear.
You think he caught them in the act?
I don't think he caught them in the act. I think he caught them maybe after.
Okay.
Or maybe like, because I think maybe he goes in, this is what my brain says. He goes in to kiss Raquel again, right? And smells Sandoval's cologne.
He said something like I don't know. He said something similar to on Watch What Happens Live, and I couldn't tell if he was joking, but like.
But that's what I think happens, and then he confronts Sandoval about it in private, out from in front of the cameras.
Yeah.
Sandoval cops to it, says it's a one-time thing, and then they drop it.
Right.
That's what I think happens. But we know that they've been fucking since boys' night.
Yeah. And the topic of Katie comes up, and Sheena's like, you have to stop calling her Bubba. You know, she's not your Bubba anymore. You've moved on, etc., and all that stuff.
It's the only thing that Sheena has ever said that I agreed with.
Well, yes, I agree. I agree with what Sheena said, but then Sandoval starts piping up and be like, dude, you have to cut her off completely. I don't want her at any more of the tastings. She can't be around the business anymore.
Because she calls me out too much.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. He is such a, as if he's like, it's bringing the mood down. Like it's distracting us from our business. Shut the fuck up, dude. You can flounder with your business enough without Katie fucking distracting you. Did Katie fucking distract you so much that you can't price out a fucking drink menu?
You know what's distracting you? Probably trying to keep up a 7-month affair hidden from your wife.
That could be very distracting. Yeah. So Lala also talks about, we go back to the dinner, and Lala is talking about how she's still talking to the Don, which, oh my God. And then Schwartz.
I don't like it.
Schwartz, as they're talking, is like snooping at them over this like pole. Like he's like a barrel child. Like just like, you know, it's like, what are you doing, dude? And then Christina's just like, Schwartz, do you want to come over? Like, because it's like so obvious.
Yeah.
And like he comes over and he's like, look, I wanted to ask Katie something, you know, and they're like, do you want to be in private? Like it's like Katie's like, just fucking say it, whatever. Like
he tries to go like earmuffs for both of you. Like, no, I'm not covering my ears like a fucking 4-year-old.
Yeah, and
just
he's
say
like,
what you're gonna say.
And he's like, you know, Katie used to always shave my armpit hair. Can you shave my? It's like,
I don't think that was it. I think that was made up on the spot.
Duh.
It sounded stupid.
Like
like, what was he gonna say?
In the middle of this party, he wanted this is where it's like, what are you doing, dude? Like.
Clearly, he was trying to like apologize, and
then he should just apologize.
Yeah, but he can't do that.
Yeah, he leaves, and then Lala. I feel like Lala was perfectly on point with here, where it's like he's like Schwartz plays this like puppy dog after shitting on Katie, and then because he's not yelling at Katie, or because he's, you know, suddenly everyone feels sad for him. It's like, it doesn't matter what the tone of what you're saying is when the words are vicious.
Well, and she's like, even I'm feeling sorry for him. And I'm like, no, fuck this guy.
Yeah, that's where I'm like, I understand that there are, like, we were talking about the ticks earlier. Like, yeah. I understand there's certain things you can't control. But I think there's a middle ground where there are certain things he can't control. But I also think he's played off of this. and he knows how to manipulate this feeling of everyone feeling bad for him.
Yes, but I don't know that it's conscious. Not
Maybe
saying
not.
that that's an excuse.
Maybe not conscious, but
Typically that kind of behavior is more it's usually developed as a survival tactic and then continued on when it's becomes toxic.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening here. Again, not an excuse. It's something he needs to deal with, and it's something that's been pointed out to him multiple times, so there's no excuse for him not to know it exists.
right.
But that's where it feels like this comes from.
Okay. I can understand that. But then, okay, so then he goes from that to then he goes and Schwartz and Raquel then go off to sit at a table. And literally they sit down and you hear Brock in the background go, "Make out!" Hate
it.
Yeah, this is like, and Katie's like, again, in the vicinity.
Right fucking there.
Like, it's like, so Schwartz, and then Schwartz is saying again that he feels like he's been a good divorcee and he's been super sweet and supportive.
Where?
Nowhere. Fucking nowhere. And like, he's like, it's not fair that Katie is like putting these restrictions on me. You know what? Like, the fact that you feel like it's restrictions says a lot about you. Like, it's not restrictions. They're common courtesies that then have to feel like restrictions because you're unwilling to just like have the decency to not fuck her friends.
Like, honestly, I would have more respect for him, marginally, but I would have more respect for him if when she said, "I don't want you to fuck around with anybody in the friend group," if he said, "No, I'm not gonna promise that."
Honestly.
Like, I don't care if this hurts you. I'm going to do what I want to do, and you need to deal with your emotions on your own. I'd have a lot more respect for him if he just said that. But he is so, like...
But he consciously or unconsciously, he's doing it in a way to put himself in a victim mentality of, Katie forced me to do this.
Yeah, 100%.
She pushed me to make out with Raquel.
Yeah.
And it's gross. It's so, and I think also, again, reeks of misogyny.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Raquel is basically like, I'm attracted to Schwartz. Keep in mind, she had said later on that Watch What Happens Live that she never really thought of herself as being attracted to Schwartz until, and then is like, and it outweighs my desire to be friends with Katie. And then they make out, and then I fucking barf. It's like, ugh, it's gross. So gross. But yeah, so that was Vanderpump Rules for this week. I mean, riveting television, don't get me wrong, but I am in my feelings a lot, and I want that reunion to come because I want, like, from all I've heard, it is a fucking reunion for the ages and is an evisceration and I can't. Tom needs to get his fucking day of just being Sandoval, of being ripped fucking apart, and I feel like that's the case.
Schwartz does too, but this was not the time.
And there was all this talk of Schwartz of like, oh yeah, he knows what he did was wrong, and he's really down, etc. Guess what? Like, we talked about this. Like, there are literally TMZ reports as of a couple days ago showing Raquel having quote unquote sleepovers at Sandoval and Ariana's house when Ariana's away doing her fucking movie. He doesn't feel bad. He doesn't. Go fuck Raquel at her apartment.
Yeah.
It's not even that you're not knowledgeable of what basic human decency is. You know what you're doing is wrong, and you're doing it fucking anyway. By all accounts of what Lala and Katie and all of them have said from what happened at the reunion is that they showed no remorse for their actions. They, so I, fuck them. Fuck them. They're fucking narcissistic crazy people who have no basic human decency for another person. Like, I don't give a fuck that Ariana didn't want to marry you and have kids at this point. You weren't man enough to communicate with her that you wanted something else and are now going to try to play victim as if you're the aggrieved. Fuck you.
Here's the thing. If she didn't want to get married and you did want to get married and she didn't want to have kids and you did want to have kids, guess what? You could have left her.
1,000%.
You could have never bought a house together.
And this isn't a new thing.
This isn't a new development. This is something that she has been adamant about since day one. You knew this shit.
And
so you signed on to this shit. So you don't get to then turn around and use that as an excuse for why you're fucking somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. Hashtag Team Ariana at the end of the day. We're going to take
Hashtag fuck these men.
Fuck these men. Fuck these men. We're going to take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to see a good man in the name of Pepsi on Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip 3. Don't go anywhere.
Well, hello, friends. I'm your pal in the mainstream media.
And I'm the Riz.
And, you know, Riz, it takes years of strenuous, dedicated training before you're worthy to step inside a professional wrestling ring. But it takes even more time to develop complex, highly astute opinions about professional wrestling. Am I right?
That is correct. And you know where we can find that?
Yes,
On the Wrestling Mayhem.
that's right.
I'm Eamon.
I'm Merlin.
And if you're anything like us, you live your life out loud.
And when it comes to issues of discrimination, inequity, and outright bigotry, we use every platform we have to speak out against systems of oppression that perpetrate violence against marginalized groups.
That's why we are so proud to wear designs from the Survivors Know merch store. Their team has created designs that feature unapologetic, empowering, and survivor-centered messaging that range from mild,
Like, accountability is love, and toxicity is not on the menu.
to a little more spicy.
Like one of my favorites, fuck your laws, fuck your system, transformative justice now, which has a cute little happy flower on it.
Each design is available on a variety of items from t-shirts and hoodies to bags, blankets, magnets, and even stickers. And as more items become available, the options will continue to grow.
100% of the proceeds go back into supporting the amazing work done at Survivors Know to support survivors, workers, and survivor advocates by organizing, challenging the status quo, and creating alternatives to the systems that fail us.
Support Survivors Know by shopping today at survivorsknow.threadless.com.
That's survivorsknow.threadless.com.
Sidekick Media Services. We are your sidekick in business for social media, video production, and more. Find out more at sidekickmediaservices.com.
Welcome back to A Gay His Enby. Let's get into this girls trip part 5 down in Thailand.
Ultimate Girls Trip 3, day 5, as you mentioned. This episode was a lot. Like, towards the end, I was just like, what the fuck is happening right now? Like, we'll get to it.
Tequila's not that important. That's the long and short of it.
Basically, like that.
Well, that's it. Good for you.
Yeah.
Have a good day, guys.
Just leave that open-ended. We go to everyone getting ready in the morning, and Pepsi is getting ready for the day with getting the kickboxers who he brought sort of for the girls ready, and he works on does some kickboxing with them and almost falls down at one point. It was so Pepsi. You were like, Pepsi is on something. He is like
I think he's just excited because this is his day.
Yeah.
So you know how everybody else has had a chance to like host a different portion of the trip.
Right.
This day he is hosting. He has planned everything, and he's excited to show the girls what he has.
He
for
literally,
them.
as he's walking to like give them the notes or whatever of what they're doing today, does like a little like skip to my Lou, like clapping his
Heel
heels.
click, yeah.
Like, what the fuck? It was so funny. And Leah, Heather, and Whitney decide to go down and kickbox. And Leah's, we've seen on Roni, like Leah does boxing all the time and stuff like that. Heather feels like it's helping her to let out some of the aggression when it comes to everything that Whitney has sort of said about her, and is able to let that out. And Giselle is just watching them from the infinity pool, just like, yeah, you guys lay it in. Like, I'm not doing that shit. Leah talks about her period again and how she like.
We need a counter. I think this is number 5, the time that she has blamed something on her period. It's definitely the second time that she's talked about having the runs.
Yeah. And like, I have so many questions about it because like we talked about like her being in the hot tub on the yacht, like during it, which seemed odd. There's a moment later too, where it's like, what are you doing?
You know, and full disclosure, neither of us have vaginas. So we don't have uteri.
But we
so
also have
we
sort
don't-
of like from what I've learned from women, like and people with vaginas, like a basic understanding of like how that operates. Like
I would personally think that, I mean, I probably with a swimming pool because it's a little bit cooler, but like a hot tub you probably wouldn't want. Well, but like the heat will probably help with
isn't
like
there chlorine
cramping
in
and
there?
whatnot. Yeah, there is, but I don't think that is really an issue. That actually would make it more sanitary.
But also, aren't they self-cleaning? I've heard
Yeah, but you still gotta clean all of like. I don't know why you're cackling.
I just love that this is the conversation we're having.
No, like, yes, they are self-cleaning typically, but like you can't just leave the blood in there.
No,
like
yeah.
you got to clean that out.
I mean, that's sure. God. Alexia and Marisol are like decompressing in the confessional about how crazy last night was. And Pepsi says that they're going to he's taking them into town to sort of go shopping and have lunch and all that. And then Marisol's going to be hosting a dinner later that night. Whitney's talking about wanting to sort of put a pin in the Heather stuff and just have fun and like
finally a housewife that gets that phrase correct. Put a pin in it.
Yeah. Where was Shannon Bedore when you need her? And she's basically, I love that Whitney was kind of at least like open of like, these girls don't understand the drama with me and Heather, so we should probably stop bringing it up. Which like, yeah, like this is way too complicated and seemingly nuanced for like regular people to understand what the fuck you guys are talking about. Like, so yeah. So, and she's like, I just want to focus on building relationships with other people. So then we get to this whole fucking narrative that we had this whole episode because Giselle's in the pool and she's like, hey, Pepsi. So I can't find this tequila bottle that we were all taking shots from that one night. And it's it's like Clase Azul, I think it's called.
Yeah.
It's like a really popular like.
Yeah, it's that white and blue with like little silver and gold accents.
And Giselle makes it seem like this is the only bottle of, I think she literally says this later, that it's like the only bottle of tequila in all of Thailand.
Well, she's talking about this one brand.
No,
like,
but yes,
they have other tequilas, but this one they don't have.
But
here.
she tries to make the point of justifying it in terms of like, I don't drink vodka, I don't drink wine, I only drink tequila. As if this was like specifically designed for her in order to be allowed to drink on the trip. Which like, I mean, spoiler alert, Giselle was just trying to find an issue. And is just like Candace even calls it out later of like, this is so manufactured.
Yeah.
It's who gives a fucking shit about this? But she's like, someone stole the bottle, and tells she tells Pepsi to be on the lookout. And like Pepsi takes a picture of her phone screen.
Like I was saying this watching it is like, there's options. Like you could airdrop.
Yeah.
You could text message. Like if your friend's on Facebook, you could send a DM. There are options here. Why did you need to or you could even, I don't know, Google this item and find the same Google image that she pulled up.
Yeah.
There were a laundry list of options that you could have gotten to before taking a picture with your phone of her phone screen.
Yeah.
That's also such a like 65-year-old boomer thing to do.
Yeah.
Like I can't.
This gets at later too. It's just like, why the fuck, Giselle, does anyone want this bottle of tequila taken from you? Why? Like what? Like
the only thing I could come up with is I wouldn't put it past Heather taking it and hiding it as a prank.
Yeah, to like get attention, maybe. Like that's
but that's Heather does that sort of thing. Like we'll hide things like in a cabinet somewhere.
Sure, but like who cares? Like it's not like she's drinking it. Like what? Yeah. and Giselle talks to Portia about it, and she's basically like, court's going to be in session at lunch, and I got my suspect number 1, and it's Heather, because I don't believe anything she's saying about anything. It's
exhausting.
It was really exhausting. It really was. And so we get the other bit of drama because Leah is talking to Heather, and Candace eventually comes in as well, and she's talking about like, I found it really ironic that at the sanctuary we were talking about sort of social media backlash and sort of how hard it is, etc. But then I come to find out that Portia posted a group photo of us at the Elephant Sanctuary and didn't tag me and didn't tag Candace. I also thought this was kind of stupid.
I thought this was stupid, but I also thought it was like, I get what.
It's immature on Portia's part.
Candace was upset about it too. It's just that Leah was the first one to bring it up on camera.
Right.
So it's like, it's immature, absolutely, like to make a big deal about it, but it's also really immature to do it. And like the fact that Portia was doing it and then acting like it wasn't a big deal, acting like it wasn't rude, like it wasn't backhanded and like trying to convince them that it wasn't a big deal. It's gaslighting. Yeah. It's bullshit. Like, full well what you're doing. Like the fact that this is going to read a certain way, like when people will see that this is shady, people will see that there's an issue, you're trying to drum up drama.
I think there were literally
the whole thing.
I think there were literally headlines when she posted that.
Literally.
I remember. Portia immature, shocking. Like when she's shown herself to be particularly mature. But Portia made a comment how she can't even remember who she was screaming at last night and what she was screaming about, but she knew she was passionate about it. That was funny.
It's because Portia doesn't actually give a shit about any of the fights she gets in. She gets in fights to get in fights because she knows it's good TV.
I'm gonna say, and I'm maybe wrong in certain respects, but I said it when her Family Matters show was out. Team Kenya.
Yeah.
Go back in retrospect. I'm not saying Kenya was perfect. Like, Kenya was definitely more of a villain in her earlier seasons, but like Portia wasn't a saint.
No, absolutely not.
And yeah. And Leah and Candace basically we find out later too, like essentially clock what Portia's going to react to this, like bringing this up. I'll be like, oh, you wanted my followers. You wanted my blah, like, and Giselle literally says it later, which is just like, they fucking nailed it. And Candace calls Portia a petty, toxic bitch who wants problems.
Not wrong.
So they're getting ready to go out and, to go shopping in Old Town. Two things. What the fuck is Alexia wearing? She this tattered it looked like she it was so unflattering and had cutouts in weird places and
talking about cutouts in weird places. Can we also talk about Leah's skirt?
What is that skirt?
Like you have hip cutouts.
That sexy knee cutout. Showing off my knee. Like, what the fuck? It literally was a knee cutout. I was like, who is this for? It was so odd. It was like it's like she was wearing a dress backwards. Like it was like she was wearing a dress with the straps on her towards her feet.
Yeah, it was bad. The whole thing was awful.
I do not understand it. There was also this fun moment where Leah and Heather were trying to get rid of a bug during breakfast, and it flies up Leah's skirt.
And Leah's not wearing underpants.
So
she starts pulling off her dress and flashes her coochie all over the. It's great.
So they go out, and Portia because everyone's sort of drinking out of their cups, and Portia's like, because apparently Marisol was the bartender and for their drinks in the morning, and Portia was like, I drink Hennessy, and this is too much. And she's like, no wonder Marisol had a stomachache this whole vacation when she's drinking jet fuel.
I mean, she's not wrong. That's how you get an ulcer.
And then they also talk about that tomorrow they're going to a Buddhist temple. And that and Pepsi's like, also you got to, dress a little more modestly when you're in that, because it's obviously a religious,
Right.
thing. And Marisol is also like, she's like worried that Candace is gonna pop off, and like she's like, because Candace is gets really loud. I felt like this was like, I'll just say it felt like kind of like unconsciously bigoted.
I don't necessarily agree. Candace does get loud, but it's always warranted when she does.
Well, that's my like. There was all this discussion later about like Candace gets so loud in confrontations. I'm like, Portia's just as loud, and I guess they're both. They're both black, but like Giselle was really like playing that up as well. And there was all this obviously this discussion on Potomac about colorism and that regard. It's just like, I don't think she's any louder than Giselle or Whitney, or I don't know. I think, as Candace would say, she's just better with her words. Alexia says that she just found out what shade was, and like based off of the Reasonably Shady game.
Oh, Alexia.
And Leah talks about like, she likes shade, but not passive aggressive shade like Giselle and them and Portia have been dishing out to her. There was this, so they have on Peacock, they have the interactive sections again where you can.
I hate it.
It's not great, but there was this weird scene where, like, again, didn't need to be included, where they talk about what they would, like, their bucket list things they would want to do, and Pepsi talks about wanting to skydive, but then he says he would want to like skydive, but also pee in the air,
and then goes on to say so that he could pee on his face. What?
Moving on.
I love you, Pepsi, but I didn't need to know about your proclivity for water sports.
Yeah.
I didn't need it.
But doesn't it make sense in a weird way?
Yeah. Kind of.
So they go to Old Town, and Pepsi's assistant Nam is showing them around and guiding them. This is where Heather has this line in her confessional of like, I think we can all agree on shopping. I mean, these are my two favorite subjects: capitalism and exploiting third world boutiques. Wow. She is from Salt Lake. Oh my God. And then Candace, the topic of like, I forgot how this comes up of like the idea of Pepsi being a sugar daddy or something like, because Pepsi's like, I got all the money for you to shop with, like in these like red envelopes, and he's like fanning himself and doing all this like, and Candace goes, I can see the sugar daddy vibes on Pepsi. We should probably ask Portia. She would probably know.
So good.
Candace was lethal in her confessionals this episode. But they go in and they're starting to buy gifts for the monks to take to the temple later, because it's like when you go, you have to basically give like an offering,
right?
Sort of thing. And the whole, as they're doing this, Leah is like talking about like that she says her vag is hot and wet, which is like, oh God, like
I didn't need that.
But that she's like basically overheating essentially. She just say you're overheating. Don't like, it doesn't have to all be in relation to, yeah. And then Giselle like apparently gave her Tums or something. Then they go shopping a little further. They get what?
Yeah, because I've always known Tums to do a lot for vaginal wetness.
Well, she also says it feels like her insides are burning, which like I don't know what it was. Like,
I mean, look, periods are not pleasant. Like, I get that you're going through a lot and you have a lot of symptoms, but and I'm not trying to minimize what people go through,
I feel really
but
bad.
But like, it's the only thing she's talking about on this trip.
Yeah.
I just, girl.
Poor Leah, as they said.
Poor Leah.
We go and they get these like frozen like milk teas or whatever, and one of them, like they're like very like long on the top or whatever, and like I guess one of them like came on Whitney's face. She's like, I didn't see that coming. And yeah, Leah's still feeling bad. And they go into this like dress shop as they're shopping. And we get this like Leah's just like zoning out essentially as everyone's like shopping and like looking at stuff. And then she basically is like, I can't feel my legs, and collapses, which is like, oh, is Leah going to get medevaced? And then, so they're like all freaking out and like fanning her. Like, what do we do? Do we lay her down? Do we sit her up? Do we like, they're not calm about this whatsoever. And Heather,
she's probably dehydrated because she's literally bleeding a lot of her hydration out. Like,
yeah, and it's such a Marisol moment. Like Heather asks, like, does anyone have like sugar or like gum or something that for her? And Marisol goes, I only have booze. Yeah, that's the ticket. Like,
yeah, that's probably the best idea.
yeah, and Leah, well, and then this moment is like Leah's like, don't lift my legs. I'm not wearing any underwear.
We know.
Yeah, and then Portia and Giselle find this to be the funniest fucking thing. And like, do not give a fuck about Leah, by the way. But are just like, I love, Portia's literally like, oh, I'm going to die in here. Oh, wait, my coochie. They basically kind of act like Leah's playing it up. And I'm like, I don't know about that.
I mean, I don't think that Leah is playing it up in this moment, but do I think that Leah has a history of grabbing something and running with it? Absolutely.
I also find it hilarious that Giselle is like making fun of someone for looking for attention.
Yeah, or Portia.
Or Portia. Cut to, where the fuck is my tequila bottle? Candace, but they're all gonna go to lunch, but Candace immediately spots, oh wait, there's a weed shop. So they're like, and we found out weed's legal, so her and Heather and Whitney go to the shop, and they're like, and Pepsi is advising them like, don't buy anything that you can't finish here. Like, you can't take it on the plane. And Candace is like, you're gonna have to bail me out of jail, Pepsi.
Jeez.
And yeah, so I think it's Alexia, Marisol, and Portia and Giselle are getting lunch, and Leah's going back to the villa because to cool down and all that. And they're talking. They're basically talking about how Candace throws tantrums and stuff like that. To me, I felt like this was really narrative setting of like Candace is this
completely
explosive person and stuff like that, and yeah, it felt calculated. They're coming back, and Candace said they got good weed. Candace talks about how she has an emergency blunt in her kitchen, which I love that phrase. That is a perfect way to put that. And then, okay, so now we get to the bottle, and Giselle is immediately going into interrogation mode, and like she's discussing the situation, she's setting the scene or whatever, and then Giselle and Heather's like, oh, so the bottle's missing, and Giselle goes, can I talk? Like immediately cutting Heather off for no reason. It was just way too much. And Heather is like, Giselle brings up your suspect number one because I don't trust you. You lie all the time, blah, 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 or whatever. And Heather in the confessional, this feels like Heather is like, at least the mean girl's giving me attention. Like that's all I really want at the end of the day.
This explains her relationship with Jen Shaw so much.
100%. It was like, this is, she needs therapy ASAP. And then Giselle obviously thinks that Marisol's another subject because of her drinking. And then also thinks Candace as well. And she's like, Giselle makes the comment of like, I was in the shower ruminating over this of like, how, fucked up this was. And Portia goes, damn, you can't even wash your ass without thinking about this. Candace. So Giselle tries to bring Candace into this of like, you stole the same tequila bottle when we were in Mexico on the cast trip for Potomac. And Candace is like, you told me to take that fucking bottle. And the production had to be literally like, no, you can't take that bottle. You're not getting arrested from the restaurant.
And Candace in confessional explains, look, I thought that production had purchased this already, so I was taking it because I thought it was already ours.
Yeah.
And Giselle told me to take it, so that's why I was taking it. And then production said, no, it's not ours. I wouldn't have taken it if I, number one, hadn't been told to, and number two, hadn't thought that it was already ours to take.
Right. And Candace is just like, look, I think you stole the bottle to make this a thing. Like
That's what
honestly,
I think.
I really do. They're all yelling, and Pepsi is over on the other table looking so fucking annoyed of like, these women are going to get arrested and it's going to be all my fault.
See, I didn't even see annoyed. I saw distraught. He looked embarrassed.
Yeah.
He was mopping sweat from his forehead. He looked like he was like almost ready to have a panic attack.
Well, everyone is staring at them, like as they're like
Yeah.
yelling at each other. And Giselle's like, well, I want to search the rooms. What? Like, this is ridiculous. Like you're all going to get strip searched. Like, at this point, it's like Candace in her confessional. I want nothing from you. You have nothing to offer but long necks and stovepipe legs. No one wants
Bitch.
that. So Leah is resting over at the villa, but Candace then decides now at this moment to bring up Portia's Instagram post and stuff like that. And Portia's just like, I don't care. Like, literally says over and over again that she doesn't care. And Candace basically, it's essentially like cyberbullying. I think that's a little too far of a.
If it was normal people, yes. But
I get her point of like,
within the context of they have platforms and what they post on Instagram has implications that are beyond just the internal relationships between the girls.
yeah.
I will agree with her on that. She was basically signaling to people that like her, I don't like Candace, I don't like Leah, attack them.
Sure.
And to this day, if I post something on Twitter in support of Candace and it happened literally today, you get a bunch of like random accounts with
really?
no tweet history, with no profile picture coming after you in the comments.
Interesting.
Literally had it out with some rando today on Twitter because I deigned to support Candace instead of Giselle.
Yeah. Giselle, we see your burners. We see
It
them.
literally is either a Portia burner or a Giselle burner. So I either had it out with one of those two ladies. Hey, ladies, you're not very good at arguing because I literally knocked you down several times. So chill.
And Portia's like, oh, are you sad? Are you crying? And then starts folding a triangle for her, which I thought was funny.
That was funny.
And then again, Alexia starts like chiming me up for some reason. It's just like, Candace, you told us to shut the fuck up yesterday. I'm like, okay. And Candace is like, you don't let people talk, Alexia. And then like it's like 5 people yelling at each other. And Portia Portia's came in like, oh, Candace yells all the time. You're all yelling right now. What the fuck?
Literally.
Yeah. And literally at this point, Pepsi is at the table literally praying. Like he is like, like full on like, get me out of this moment. And he's like, oh, you're a baby. Portia's like, oh, you're a baby. We need Pedialyte. You need a Pedialyte for PJ? Because PJ's Portia's daughter. Yeah, whatever. And then Pepsi's like, okay, guys, I got a fun new thing for you to do. We're going to ride in this tuk-tuk, which is like their like things or whatever. And they're like, yay, we're going to the tuk-tuk. They literally drive, and not hyperbole, they show it on the screen for 2 minutes. And they're like, well, we're going back to the villa. Like it literally felt like Pepsi like just found the 3 tuk-tuks and was just like, let's get them in so we can get them out of this fight and get them back to the villa because they're going to get arrested.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't want them walking down the street. I need to drive them back to the vans.
Yeah. Pepsi's showing them pictures of his kid in the Sprinter van, and we found out he has a kid and 4 wives. So he's been,
I don't think that they're all current wives.
No. That's not what I meant.
He has had 4 wives.
He has had 4 wives.
Okay.
Yeah. And Marisol is in the Sprinter with Giselle, and she's like, Giselle went full Perry Mason at the
Perry Mason was successful.
Yeah. And then Heather is like going off on Giselle, or going off about Giselle in the Sprinter van, and is like, I was gonna Teresa Judice her ass and throw that soup on her or whatever, and like I'm sick of her shit or whatever. And Whitney is like, you should have brought this out at the table. And Whitney's like, this just shows that Heather is two-faced. And she says
Literally.
Typically, I agree that Heather is two-faced, but like everyone at that table was yelling. You want a sixth person to yell? Like,
I'm not saying that, but I agree with what Whitney is saying.
Sure.
Because she is saying you bring one thing in private, you bring something else in public. So, like, if you could have one personality, that'd be great.
sure. We get back to the villa. So Whitney, I guess, has to go to the bathroom immediately, and it's like I gotta rush in, whatever, because I have to go to the bathroom. And Giselle immediately is like, "Well, she's moving the bottle."
Ugh.
So over it. And Marisol is like, I found it weird that Whitney was laughing when Heather was being questioned. Like, if that was my friend, like, that would be an issue. And Marisol is telling them to all get ready for later tonight because they're having a cocky making party and all that. We don't get it this episode. We'll get it, I'm assuming, next episode. We get a bonus scene where Candace calls Chris, and it's like, what, like probably midnight in Potomac? And he's just like, yeah, what's up?
No, it's got to be later than that because he's usually... Like, he's running a restaurant. He's probably not home till like 3 o'clock in the morning.
That's a good point. And like Candace like is like telling him all about the Giselle stuff and what happened. And he's literally like, did you really just wake me up because Giselle can't find tequila?
After everything he has dealt with from that woman this season or this past season on Potomac, I get it. He doesn't want to hear that woman's name.
He's like, yes, babe, Giselle's ridiculous. We know this. Like, Candace then goes to check on Leah, and as she's doing, like, telling Leah about like what happened, and Candace bringing up the Instagram picture, Giselle is like getting a producer, like, so you're gonna check on our room now, right? Like, as if this is as like someone, I forgot who it was. It's like it's as if like someone stole her child.
The producer is literally looking at her like, you're crazy. I'm not checking her room.
Yeah. And like, it's like, we'll maybe get Pepsi to do it or whatever. And it's like, also, someone made a good tweet, which was just like, I feel bad for the staff. Because it's like, the staff's going to get blamed for that if it's actually missing or something.
Literally, Pepsi was like hiding behind the bar crying.
Yeah. It was like, oh my God. Like, how, like, poor Pepsi, like, for this stupid storyline that Giselle's doing. Like, yeah. Leah is talking, and they're talking about the whole Portia stuff, and what Portia said about the photo. And Leah's like, you can't play stupid and smart at the same time, which I agree with. I temporarily live by that model. And Whitney's like, it's not even about the bottle anymore. It's just about Giselle proving Candace wrong at this point.
Literally that.
Literally. And then Giselle comes into Leah's room to like clear up because like she's like, oh, Candace is not telling the full story, whatever, to say the Leah thing. And then Candace is like, so you want Candace, who is gonna go through your room? And Candace is like, I'll go through my room. And it's like, nope, you're not doing that. Like, it was like so stupid. And Candace in her confessional, like, are Jamal Bryant's alimony checks not clearing fast enough? Like,
let me Venmo you $100 right now.
Yeah, it's literally like, girl, like, it's ridiculous. And Leah's like, why wouldn't you check Marisol's? Marisol's makes the most sense. She's drinking all the fucking time. And like you mentioned, Pepsi's like on the floor crying, and even in his confessional, like just like fucking like tearing up, like God damn you, Giselle. And Candace is like, Candace and Giselle are yelling across the room or whatever, and just like yelling at each other. Candace says she's acting like a Karen, which I thought it was funny because they literally have Karen on their show. Yeah.
Who is like the least Karen of people named Karen I've ever met.
Yeah.
Or not met, but seen.
No, we know these people.
We know them. They're our friends.
Yeah, and then that's how the episode ends. Good episode if you like dramatics. Damn you, Giselle, for making Pepsi cry. I'm so mad. Pepsi does not deserve this. But other than that, really good episode of the show.
All right, so tops and bottoms. Tops and bottoms. We got Jersey. We got Vanderpump. We got Ultimate Girls Trip, what you thinking?
So much. My top, I'm gonna give to Candace. I think Candace had really had quotable line after quotable line of just dragging Giselle in particular that I thought was so the Jamal Bryant line. I love whenever she talks about her neck. Candace was really good, and I'm loving Candace more and more. It was sort of a continuation of and particularly when Giselle was being so ridiculous, you needed Candace to sort of call her out on her bullshit. So that helped, assuage things, so to speak. My bottom is going to Schwartz. I'm not going to get too much into it
Fuck that guy.
Yeah, Schwartz this is his worst season by far. I think there is certain things where it's not just I think in past seasons I was okay, I'm annoyed with him here, but I can attribute it to his personality, or I can attribute it to certain things. Mm-hmm. And I hear what you've been saying, and I agree with you in parts. I think there's certain really nasty things, in particular of how he's treated Katie, that I just find it's also one thing when you're in the dynamic of a marriage where that's difficult and you have marital issues, but now that you're split up from this person and you're still treating them in this way, while trying to cast this aspersion that Katie's the mean one and Katie's the bully, you're coming off as a bully to her at the end of the day. And I just am not a fan of it by any means. And it's frustrated me so much this last couple of days. So what about you? What are your tops and bottoms?
So my top is going to be Katie. So number one, she needs people on her side because she has been doing nothing but standing up for herself for the last 10 years, and I suspect the 2 years before that as well. And she never has anybody that goes to bat for her. She never has anybody that stands up for her. And you know what? Fuck it. I will stand for Katie. Because
I think I tweeted, if you're not Team Katie after this season, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, literally. Because I just... when she finally put her foot down at that dinner and got up and left, just didn't say anything, just got up and left. And the power the strength that took, and then just laugh in Raquel's face immediately after that with no, you're not going to go to this place. You're not going to go to that place. No, fuck you. I'm here on a vacation with my friend Christina, and we're going to go wherever the damn hell we please. And that was not good use of curse words, but I don't fucking care at the moment. We're going to go wherever we fucking want to go. And your little wedding party that you're a part of is not going to assuage that. We're going to go to the pool we want to go to. We're going to go to the restaurant we want to go to. And fuck everybody else here that tries to tell us otherwise. She stood in her power in this episode. And I hope to see more of that. I hope to see her give Schwartz an epic smackdown on this reunion. And I can't wait till her and Ariana open this amazing shop that eclipses both Tom Tom and Schwartz and Sandy's. Done. That's what I want from her, and I see the beginning of it here. So that's why she's my top this week. My bottom for this episode is Giselle fucking Bryant.
So ridiculous.
It's so manufactured, and her and Portia both are, they know what they're doing. They know what picture they're painting to their audience. They know what narrative they're putting out there in the world. And they know that the end result of it will be more people attacking Candace online.
Yeah.
That is her end goal. That has always been her end goal. And to act like it's nothing more than just, it's just, I want to know where my tequila is. I just want to know. It's the only thing. Fuck off. You know what you're doing. You know you're weaponizing your adjacentness to whiteness to get people to attack Candace, who is a darker skin tone than you are. Fuck off.
Yeah.
You know what you're doing. You did it all season on Potomac. You did it last season on Potomac. You did it not necessarily the season before that, but you've been doing it pretty repeatedly. Okay? This is your MO. You and Robin, and to a lesser extent, Ashley, have been forming this posse and doing this shit, weaponizing your followers online, and this is just more of it. And I'm fucking sick of you gaslighting Candace constantly, trying to make her seem like she's crazy for calling you out.
Yeah.
And like, you only are picking up Portia because she's willing to go along. You're only going after Leah because she's adjacent to Candace. Candace is your target. She's been your target for a while. So just own it. Own the fact that you're a fucking bitch.
Yeah. Period.
Like, I am sick of it. I'm sick of, like, and then all of your followers will sit online and go, well, she was antagonizing her. She was aggravating the whole situation. Where? Giselle is the one that starts all of these conflicts. Always.
Yeah.
It's always Giselle. When has Candace started anything? Candace doesn't start shit, but she will fucking finish it. And I can't wait until she finishes it for you. I'm done. Hey, thanks for tuning into this episode of A Gay and His Enby.
Join us next time for more of our recaps and hot takes. And be sure to subscribe and leave a review wherever you are listening. And check us out on our social media at A Gay and His Enby on all the platforms.
A special shout out to Shane Ivers, who wrote Pulsar, the song we use for our theme.
I'm Eamon.
I'm Merlin,
And we're out.
This show is a member of the Sorgatron Media Podcast Network. Find out more at sorgatronmedia.com.